Should put myself in the stream, I think, is a good rule of thumb before I hit the go live button. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another preview episode of Fireside Chat, or whatever you want to call it. We're previewing AEW Dynamite for January 11th, 2023. Sort of a big show. We've got at the Kia Forum in Los Angeles this fine evening or afternoon. If you're West Coast, I'm going to be watching it there or watching the event live. Congratulations. Should be a very big show. But we'll be talking about that, obviously, here. And then also just kind of some continuation on the reckless speculation that is the WWE sale, rumors from last night, and what that means going forward, where it is now, all that sort of stuff. I'll get into maybe halfway through, and we'll finish the show with that. But I want to preview. Obviously, it's a big episode of Dynamite, and it feels kind of opposite of what the news at AEW is always kind of, not always, but like this past 6 months especially, it feels like WWE's been the slow, steady. Hey, you're getting story. There's not a ton of intrigue post Vince McMahon retiring, and AEW's got all these crazy stories going on. So it always kind of superseded, and it feels like we're obviously reversed this week on that, which is a big show for AEW, but the WWE news is 1,000 times more important. So I want to make sure give some time to the AEW show tonight. I think it'll be a nice little respite of, for me as a consumer of wrestling, to have a show to look forward to tonight. So excited to do that, but run down kind of what we got here. I've got my handy photo of the event on my phone to run through. I don't have my nice written down note, but we've got, obviously, I think the main event, depending on if there's some changes here, is Game 7, as they're calling it. Match 7 of the best 7 series between Death Triangle and the Elite. And, we'll get into all these individually here. We also have the tag match between Jamie, Britt Baker, and Saraya and Toni Storm. So, if that is the main event, maybe then what we all thought was going to happen, still think may happen. I'm curious what you guys think in the chat. If you still think Mercedes Moné is still going to show up or not. Like at this point, I'm not out of the projection and prediction business, but after the last 24 hours, I don't want to say I definitely think one thing or another in wrestling at this point. So we'll see. I'm going to watch tonight and be entertained by it, is what I know. We also have smaller picture here. We've got the Jericho Appreciation Society is going to be there. We've got Bryan Danielson and Takeshita in a battle. And then we've got Big Bill and Lee Moriarty taking on Hook and Jungle Boy. So for all those who want the Easter egg, that is Jungle Boy's theme song. Is the first song on that Baltimore album. So that's why I have that up here. So shout out to him. And then we also have Jon Moxley and Hangman Page in a match as well, which built up in a certain way could have also been the main event. But obviously, I think match 7 in the women's tag are the top 2 matches on the show. And then Moxley, Hangman's number 3. But on a normal week, that could easily be a no doubt, stone cold lead pipe lock of the main event. And since Samoa Joe's not on the show, obviously one of these will be the main event, because if Samoa Joe is on the show, he'd be main eventing. Not even shame. It's just amazing that every time he's been on Dynamite the last 2 months, he's main evented the show. So a lot of trust and strong numbers for Samoa Joe, obviously, out there. So he's not on the show tonight, but so that's what we got. So I would like to start with the women's tag match, if you all do not mind. Everyone in the chat, hello. Hazan, Tracy, I see you there. And then there's lots of you out there also watching on top of that. So if you are new, if you kind of caught our coverage the last 5 days or so, thank you for, obviously you hit that bell notification. So thank you for doing that. You probably subscribed. Thank you for that. And we really appreciate you. I am curious, did anyone see an ad before this started? This is obviously only good for live content, so please disregard and skip ahead 15 seconds. if you're watching this on post. But I'm just curious. You can just put in the comment because we tried out a new thing today. I'm wondering if you saw an ad or anything. So anyway, let's start with the women's tag match. We've got Britt Baker, Jamie Hayter taking on Saraya and Toni Storm. Again, I don't want to really be in the prediction business. I'm curious what you all think. It seems like the Mercedes appearing at AEW is, maybe more or less inclined to happen. Again, I don't really want to make big predictions here, but I certainly think her going back to WWE is off the table, is the most likely scenario here. So if I don't think anything that happened this past week changed if she was going to be here tonight or not, I guess is where I am. So again, we'll see where it is. I'm curious what you all think. I was very much, as soon as Wrestle Kingdom happened, she appeared, as was stated. She said she had a match on February 19th. I thought for sure she's going to be at AEW now at this point, but I'm less inclined to think that now in recent weeks with not even reporting, just it makes sense to like have that Stardom stuff be the first thing and then kind of come to AEW as you go. I think the way AEW booked this is that was the plan and then it fell through. So that, could just be a red herring that we're seeing here tonight. But I think if it is red herring, AEW has made lemonade out of that lemon of a situation, because I think we're going to get super badass heel Sheeta, which I think is a very interesting character, and I'm excited to see it. She's earned more stories, not for the title, based on her, past couple matches that she's gotten. So I think that, obviously Mercedes coming in, if the best case scenario would be both, in my opinion, right? You bolster the AEW as a brand and the women's division majorly. It's the number one story in the wrestling world for at least a couple hours, right? She premieres in AEW, and that's all good. But I think Sheeta, injuring Toni Storm or costing Toni Storm and Saraya the match, either way, is almost guaranteed at this point. And I think that is great, whether Mercedes is there or not. It also lends AEW to tell a story of Jamie and Britt, Jamie and Saraya, maybe as like a title story, depending on how this match goes. And also, Toni Storm and Sheeta is a perfectly made feud, and that'll get TV time, a la the Serena Deeb and Sheeta feud from 2022 as well. So I think all that's great. And, you can, who knock on wood, we might get, 2 women's matches on an episode of Dynamite in 2023. I think it happened once in 2022. So that would be excellent. So we'll see. But yes, Zach, you are hyped for the show. Good to hear. Mob Box Sheeta, that would be great. If she does I doubt she's been watching a lot of Tulsa King. I just kind of started watching that the other day as like kind of a morbid curiosity, I guess, because I'm a Sly Stallone fan, but I didn't think it would work. And I thought it's a pretty comical show and doesn't take itself too seriously. So maybe like some sort of Sheeta as a Sly Stallone character in that show would be interesting. But probably haven't heard that analysis anywhere on the internet. So thank you for being here to listen to that. But so we've got that. We'll see. That's the one I'm least inclined on knowing what's going to happen. So we'll see. Then we've got Mr. Grimer. Well, if you're going to ask me the format of the show, I'm going to oblige. So you're asking which match should start the show. I think the ladder match closes the show, all but certainly, because then we'll talk about it. But it's been built up for months, and to have that would be good. So I think the show will start with Moxley and Hangman, but I think the show should start with the women's tag match. You put it in a different time slot. You label it as, whatever opens and closes the show should be the most important thing, or the 2 most important things. If you're going to have a reveal of Mercedes, I think that's going to go first or last. You are tipping your hand, but you want to make sure you have the most eyeballs on it at that time. So that's there. So that's what I think should start the show. But I think Hangman Moxley opens, or Zach has my second option, which is Danielson versus Takeshita. That feels like very much a traditional AEW of 2022 opening to a show. So we'll see. But I would do the women's match first. And you kind of then don't, as a viewer, like I'm not speculating, oh, is Mercedes going to be here tonight? And that doesn't dour anything. But we'll see. So, and then Mr. Grimer, thank you again for another question. Is that true? Is it true that Mercedes is on a paper appearance deal? I don't know. I'm sure someone else has reported out there. If you watch any of my videos the last couple of days, I'm not a newsbreaker. I am someone who just talks about the news that I trust across there. So I've not seen that. So potentially, and if you're in demand and can do it, like why not? So I wouldn't be shocked if she's worked a deal for herself like that at this part. So so let's get into the what I think is the main event, the ladder match. You got match 7 between Death Triangle, the Elite. In a ladder match for the titles should be an absolute barn burner. If you've liked any of these matches, one would think that this should be up there as with the first one, maybe as the one that you'll go back to and remember from all these series. Obviously, the ladder aspect comes into play there, but yeah, I mean, unless any of you have some individual like Hazan's on here and he's rightfully predicted a lot of intermatch stuff specific to this feud. So if you have any ideas there, please let me know. But I'm not what spots happen, don't happen, etc. I don't know, but we'll see. And I think the real thing in here is not super creative from my part, but it feels like the Elite win. They kind of do the run they were intended to have. You just take their run that they were going to have in this time frame already, and then put it back now, and then they'll run with it until maybe Double or Nothing as a cap, I would say. We'll see. Maybe Revolution. I don't know, but and what happens at the end, it feels like almost certainly like the House of Black come in and assault them, and that's how you start your next feud. I don't think they're going to have a match next week on Dynamite, but that's just with the pay-per-view match in some way, shape, or form. And Hazan, you got it, man. I think that's a good call. Takeshita will help the Elite. So then does that lead to? I mean, you're not going to have Danielson interfering here, but does Moxley and Yuta and Cesaro come in because Takeshita's involved and he just battled another Blackpool Combat Club guy, and you can do that story instead of House of Black? You have those three versus the Elite, which feels like a big match. You also have Moxley coming off a decisive victory or a decisive loss, maybe not decisive loss, a loss that you need a rubber match versus Hangman. We'll talk about that here coming up. So you then have Hangman and the Elite, like, will they, won't they, which is not my favorite storyline of all time. But yeah, Takeshita, Hangman, one of them helping the Elite, and Blackpool Combat Club not loving that based on what had happened in the other two matches, right? Them being involved with Blackpool Combat Club people, I think is an interesting way to look at this, and something to, not spoil it, but it makes a lot of sense. And if you're not going to do House of Black at this point, maybe you have them get the belts off the Elite at Double or Nothing to solidify them as a group again. And you have this Blackpool Combat Club versus the Elite situation. And, one thing to think of too, if anyone has the date off the top of their head, but Blood and Guts is usually in March, if I'm not mistaken. So, if you have the five guy, the Elite plus Hangman plus Takeshita versus, Danielson, Moxley, Yuta, Cesaro, and one other person you want to add in there. At Blood and Guts post Revolution, I think is where it lays. Again, please let me know if I'm way off on this, but that would make a lot of sense to set that up too. You have like 3-on-3, and then you go to Blood and Guts to end that feud, and then you move on to House of Black. If I'm pitching some 6 months of booking for Tony Khan here, I think he would have to agree that's not too bad. So June, okay. as Zach said. I'll pop it up here, Zach. It's in June. So disregard everything I just said, or just move it up, whatever. So we'll see. But, having 5 guys take on 4 guys almost lends itself to that sort of situation. So we'll see. But official prediction, I see the Elite getting the win here, being the champions. One question I have, which I think is obvious, that I don't even really need to ask you, but there will be 3 belts hanging, I presume. So will all 3 guys get it at the same time? It just lends itself. The more belts you have, the more likely you are to get into the, if I ever have a wrestling company, just know this will happen at some point, but you'll have the tag team titles up there and you have, one person from one team, one person from the other team, they each get a belt. And then now they're like a forced tag team. I think that'd be very fun. But, does that possibility of happening, right? Is Pac and the Young Bucks, the tag team champions. I don't think that's happening tonight. Just like a fun thought exercise. But when you have 3 belts up there, it looks more goofy than 2, way more goofy than 1. So I understand like what else you're going to go for besides the belts, but I'm curious of that imagery because we haven't seen that a lot in North American major wrestling. So just spot that out, that it'll may look a little strange with those 3 up there. Also, do you do them even, or do you do like Kenny's and then the Bucks a little lower? So yeah. Amos in here, best 2 out of 3 belts. Yeah, that's funny. Or best of 7 belts. Have 7 belts up there, and then nothing mattered here, or they draw or something, and then you do that. So I'm sure unjokingly that these discussions have been had at a high level at AEW. So I'm glad that I can oblige and join that as well. So we got those 2. Another one, 3 main event type matches. We've got next Moxley and Hangman Page. And, what some, I would say most people that I've interacted with, Torch related, fans of the Torch, VIP members of the Torch, have not loved this feud, especially not loved the Hangman characterization, his mindset, what's driving him in this feud. And especially didn't particularly love last week's explanation, makes him feel a little bit crybaby. I've been on the other side of that, where I've liked this more than I initially thought I would with the storyline. Last week's, kind of too cute by half explanation by Hangman of like, I wasn't mad at you for knocking me out. I was mad at you for making fun of it, whatever. Like, I think that's the real human being of Hangman would feel that way if this, if Moxley intended to knock him out on purpose, which I don't think anyone thinks that he did. He's just a guy going 100 miles an hour in the ring there. So, I think it's just the same thing that has almost worked with Hangman a lot, but has just not, it's been gotten to 85, 90% of where it needs to be. Is just like, there's an idea there, just needs fleshed out in a little different way to make it hit in the right way in a pro wrestling landscape. And, that's where having writers, producers, and et cetera helps. And I just think that's been a constant thing with Hangman to get him just not over that hump of being a top 6 guy in the company, top 10 guy, maybe more, and being that like that ace, that alpha, that Roman Reigns type, that what MJF kind of took from him. If you start the company, Hangman had every opportunity, and MJF kind of came in and took it, right? So not an indictment on Hangman, just I think it's been a lot of same stuff, and I've liked most of where his character's gone with the, him and Kenny breaking up and then them having their match, and all that works if you really follow it, but it hasn't worked tremendously from a, common viewer space, and you don't see him very often, right? You don't see Hangman every week, you see him occasionally. And so I liked it. So I've liked where this feud has gone. It felt serious. It felt like a more serious Hangman. I just think I liked it a little bit more than everyone else, but I understand also the critique of it as well. So I'm curious to hear, but to get to the match itself, this to me feels a little more like Hangman needs this more so than Jon Moxley. And that's kind of a WWE perspective to booking that I don't usually do in AEW, but feels like Moxley could lose this no problem. He's Teflon at this point, and Hangman could really use it to get him up there. You get to then a rubber match. It could main event, next week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks from now, Dynamite before you ramp up for the pay-per-view. Or you could save the third match for the pay-per-view and have it feel like a big blow-off feud to get there. So I think Heyman winning here makes a lot more sense for all that sort of long-term booking. But if you're doing something with his character, having him lose here could make sense. But it feels like him aligning with the Bucks and Kenny, again, feels like a huge moment that him losing here would not help facilitate. So for the intermediate booking to build big matches for a pay-per-view, I think it's good. And then also for him and the Elite to get back together, I think him winning, feeling good about himself, feeling like he's established himself within AEW as a character, the meta narrative that all that is, and that's in our faces, would help. And yes, as Zach says, this match should be real stiff. And then Steven, yeah, I mean, you're kind of echoing what I think a lot of people have said, who wants to get behind this guy being Hangman? He's supposed to be a tough guy, but acts like a baby. So I think the problem is that I guess I don't view him as a tough guy, and I don't think he's acting like a baby, but like I cannot really argue with how you're feeling about the situation, right? And I think a lot of people feel the same way. So I think him just like honing in on I'm a sensitive guy who can like go in the ring and all that stuff. Like, I don't think Kenny Omega's a tough guy, right? I think he's like a weirdo who's super athletic, right? And that's Hangman can be similar to that. He can be like that, the jock who's a poet, right? He's like the star quarterback of the team that also is, reading poetry, writing poetry, and he's he's the guy that if he came out as a star prospect, they would be like, I don't know if he loves football enough to be a star. He really has interest in all these other things. So, but I don't think that's been fleshed out well enough with the character, the presentation of Hangman, right? The thing with Hangman has always been people like me, people everywhere explaining, the long-term story with him and Kenny White's so great, but you didn't see that if you just view it. And I think that's the overall problem with his character, with Kenny's character, with the Bucks character, right? There's a lot of gaps that get filled by people like me, but that doesn't do justice to 95% of the audience, right? That are like, oh, this guy's he's cool. I like cowboys. The cowboy shit thing was fun. He drank beer. That was cool. But that's like, if you ask like a general viewer of AEW, right? So a hardcore wrestling fan in general, but like someone who's not like dissecting his character, they'd be like, oh yeah, cowboy shit's fun to say. I like that he drinks beer. He's, good in the ring. He entertains me. Seems like a nice guy. All those, like, that's the line of what people think of Hangman is not what I described, which I think he's going for. But I think at this point we're 3-4 years in, and I don't know if that's going to change dramatically without a change in like creative direction and like, hey, if if Tony Khan's booking the main event and some other stuff and someone else is booking the rest, excuse me, maybe then that could change. And if he's forced to like look at his character and do Freddie Prinze Jr., acting class type things and like explain his character, do all that, that could change, but I just don't think it will at this point. So I think, unfortunately, whatever you think of Hangman at this point, good or bad, is probably baked in for most people. So sorry to be a little dour note on the Hangman for the fans and for the people who are not as big on him. Maybe that was good news. I don't know. But so anyway, I think that tonight, I think Heyman should get the win. I think he will get the win in a big triumphant moment. Would be the second biggest singles victory of his career, besides beating Kenny Omega for the world title. He could use some momentum. It then makes Moxley, and he's got to figure out what he's doing now post run. I think all that makes more sense. A lighter version of the Jericho thing. Obviously, Hangman is a former champion. He's not Action Andretti, but the same sort of situation you could have there, and maybe that leads to him and Danielson within the Blackpool Combat Club. Danielson won his match, Moxley lost. You could tell many stories that I'm probably even going too deep on it here, but I think it makes the most sense in having a third match between these two, depending if the match is good, which I assume it will be. But if they have good chemistry and don't knock each other out again, then I think a third match would be preferable, in my opinion, for the show in San Francisco in a couple of weeks. All right, what do we got? What's left? Okay, we got Danielson and Takeshita. I think this should, be a banger of a match. Good to see Takeshita back on major television. I know he's been doing some dark stuff and some Rampage stuff, but see him on the main show for a big event like this. I'm curious, I always try and gauge pops. I hopefully Wade will have a live correspondent tonight, but I'm curious to see like the pop level for Takeshita tonight versus everybody. There's a lot of big stars on the show tonight, and I bet he'll have a sneaky big pop tonight with that crowd in Los Angeles. So that's one thing I'm looking for. I think Danielson obviously wins to continue his gauntlet to get to MJF. That makes total sense, but should be a banger of a match. I think both will want to steal the show, and this should hopefully get over 1 million if you're AEW tonight from a viewership standpoint. So putting Takeshita on a big stage here and having a banger of a match makes a ton of sense. So very bullish on the booking here, and excited to see the match itself. And, I just hope there's not too much like, oh, Danielson gave 15 minutes to Takeshita, he's got to go for the title. Like, I just want to see a good 15-minute match here, and I think that can definitely happen. So, if that has to open the show, as Zach projected earlier in the comments, I'm fine with that, because then, you could go the whole thing without a commercial break, and I think that would be awesome. But, we'll see how that goes. And then the last match tonight, we got Big Bill and Lee Moriarty. I'll never not laugh at Big Bill. I don't know. I don't know why, but taking on Hook and Jungle Boy. Curious to see how this match goes. Will this be the longest match of Hook's career? Probably. So to see that, if this goes 5-6 minutes, and then just kind of how, they interact. It said like one time only, right? I think is the booking for Jungle Hook is the name. So curious to see if they go any farther together than this, or if this is like a weird one-time thing. And if it doesn't, then like what's their interaction in the ring like? Do they turn into a feud with each other, which would make a ton of sense. But yeah, as Zach says here, Hook suplexing or just doing any sort of judo moves on Big Bill will be impressive. So that's what to look for here, and just how strong Moriarty and Bill are booked, right? So 5-6 minutes should be a good match. Get the crowd hyped to see some of their favorites hit big moves. Is the is the way to go there. And then as Milano and Amos pop in here in the chat, they are not quite as excited. So 5-6 minutes, you just have to, what else is on? You could put on a basketball game or a hockey game, I suppose. TNT will have a hockey game on, so you can watch that for 5 minutes. But yeah, I mean, it is what it is. It's a way to get Jungle Hook a victory and continue them as a group, or see what they're doing from there. So that's why we talked about it last. And then JAS, Jericho Appreciation Society, will be present. They were at PWG, so who knows if they will talk about that or not. But a continuation to see what Jericho and company are going to be doing after this episode. So who knows, if the Acclaim come out and do a rap, that might be a good vessel for that, but we'll see. Because, Jericho and Hager going for the tag titles and then losing those as well could be an interesting way to go as well. So we'll see. So that's Dynamite. I think it should be a great show. Obviously 3 main event type matches for a crowd there. Should be a super hot crowd there at the Forum. And all of that stuff, kind of a half a pay-per-view level event as it's been booked. So it should be very good. I'm excited for it. Hopefully you all are, or, you wouldn't be here. So there's that. So I want to transition now till the end of the show here about the WWE rumors about their sale. Myself and Brian hopped on last night and did some reckless speculation on the rumors, and on there I hypothesized that I said from the top, if it's not from Wade or Dave or Brian Alvarez or SRS or someone of that ilk, you can't be jumping all over things. There's fake Kermits on Reddit. I don't know if you guys, hopefully you don't know about that. That means you're not on Reddit too much, but there's like a user named Kermit who allegedly is an insider and leaks things. And there was a bunch of fake Kermits that were saying that the deal was done. So, fake news strikes us all there. But that's, I said top show, we said allegedly throughout the night. And I think it's a good example of trusted sources are important, and people saying like, hey, I have no idea, but if this is true, here's what I think. That's what I tried to do. So I hope that came across last night. I didn't, want to mislead and everything, but where we stand, we're kind of where we were last night. No official denial from WWE, no word at all about it, right? And that news coming right after that rumor coming out right after Stephanie is stepping down, taken out by her father, essentially, right? Is I'm glad you guys are getting a pop out of the fake Kermits, but it's something that is, I'm not not going to conspiracy Tyler mode here, but if you were to essentially push out your daughter of your company, and then there's a crazy rumor that leaks a couple hours later, I'm just saying, like, hey, maybe that was a way to make the other story seem less crazy when you put the craziest story possible out there. Could also be feelers for like, how would the public reaction be? How would the stock reaction be? I actually haven't looked at the stock today. I don't know if it took a hit or dive or went up, whatever. But how do lay people, aka being people that are not here in this chat, normal people, not us crazy people that love wrestling as much as we do. How do they react to that? I think all that was on the table, but it also just could have been, what probably happened, in my opinion. Again, no sourcing, as I always say. You're just coming to me for a guy who just thinks of Occam's razor of the situation, right? Probably one trusted source for all these people was telling all these people the same thing, and even the big names heard it. Wade, Dave, Alvarez, SRS, they all Brian Alvarez and SRS doing the eyeballs or big news coming. Dave saying, "Oh, I think big news is coming." In journalism, right? As we all know, like, you need two sources to get any story published on a credible journalistic paper, website, whatever. And, that's why I think this is one person that was saying these things, and it's a trusted source to people, and they just cannot get a confirmation from a second source, right? So I think a little bit of that happened, which doesn't, in my opinion, as I smack my mic, does not. I think the Saudi thing is still certainly a possibility. I think this person might have good information. You don't know, but there's not another person that can corroborate it. And there might be talks that they heard about through, they're walking down the office and they heard a call on speakerphone, and it was, oh, the crown prince will be here, whatever, right? Something like that. And then someone ran with it. And that's how the game of telephone works. You hear things tertiary, third hand, and you run with it, right? So, there's lots of possibilities here. The palace intrigue is, the most exciting thing in all the story. And we're all kind of guessing on it. But, I would just, there's been, I would implore you, Fightful, so SRS and the founder of it, Jim something. I'm sorry, I don't remember his name, but they had a good, like, hour-long YouTube video today that I watched most of, and kind of going through their hypothesis here. And I think SRS was, he was upset that he had the one source and then the source kind of ghosted him, is what it would seem. Go watch the video for what you think. But I think some people were burned by this source. And what I'm trying to say here is that, like, I think anything is a possibility, and it could happen. If it does happen, I think it could be weeks and months away. Jimmy Van, thank you, Zach, is the founder of Fightful. So just keep an ear out. As Wade said on here on Friday with me, the story has tentacles. It's got layers. It's going to unfold over time. So things are going to trickle through. Things that, if Paul Levesque is out, right, like, it's probably already determined and it'll happen in 3 weeks, right? That's how these things kind of go. As soon as Vince made his move, Stephanie was always gone, is my reading of the situation, right? So just make sure you find sources that you trust. I will try and do the same for you here, but just know, like, my motto is, I'm not a newsbreaker. I will analyze on speculation and what I think that means. So I stand by everything I said last night about basically my eulogizing of my childhood love of wrestling. If it does happen, I think a lot of people feel the same way. But so we will see what happens there. But on a couple other questions here, yeah, I mean, RIP WWE was trending all night last night. William and Amos have interesting ideas of any chance they're spreading misinformation internally to try and see if they have a mole. The mole could have been caught, right? If there's 5 stories leaked and that one popped through. Amos saying, just trying to gauge reaction if it would cause real problems. And that's not, real problems for you and I, the viewers. It's like if they got a call from Comcast today of like, hey, is this true? Because like we are not negotiating a deal with you if this is true. They don't care what you and I think about. They care about what the people with the big contracts think, right? So that could have been floated out there for that to happen. So, there's infinite angles to this that, I don't think anyone out there, maybe if you took every opinion person out there and put it all together, you could find the true story, but I don't think I'm 100% right. I don't think anyone else out there is 100% right on what is happening here. So just, stay locked in, enjoy Dynamite tonight. And I think that this will all work itself out. Hopefully, I think at this point too, one other potential thing is like, if they sell it to anyone else besides the Saudi government, I think everyone in the wrestling community will find that as a huge victory, where I think anyone buying the company with Vince running it was always going to be a negative. And this is at least not the worst case scenario if Amazon buys it and Vince is running creative, which to answer Hassan's question, I think Vince will certainly be booking it all, if not all, but most of creative, by post WrestleMania is my guess. Again, no sourcing there, but it feels like all these moves have happened for him to sell it and run it, run creative, or to almost sell it and be like, oh, we didn't sell it, and then run it again himself. So that's just my take. It's been my take from the beginning. So we will see if that does happen. But so went a little long today, but I want to make sure we talked about WWE. And Zach and I will be on Fireside Chat tomorrow at 4 p.m. Hopefully we'll have more news. If not, then we'll get Zach's perspective, because Zach has been radio silent on YouTube, right? I think he's done it on purpose to be the big reveal tomorrow and all his thoughts on this stuff. But I think he didn't want the reckless speculation hashtag under his name. So I'm fine doing that. That's what I'm here for, you guys. I'm just a common man, just like you. I don't know any more about wrestling than anyone on this chat. So I appreciate it. That's why I always appreciate, you guys hopping on and talking with me, because, you guys make me smarter. Oh no, Hassan, more breaking news. Where's it from? I will stay live, but what is the source potentially as we're live here? Unless you're talking about the Jets firing Mike LaFleur as their offensive coordinator. Oh, you're saying. I thought there's more literally now. I think Hassan, you were the one to let Zach and I know about Vince's retirement live on air. So you're my trusted source on there is news. Hey, there's some news. Look at that. ROH Supercard of Honor, March 31st in LA. So, all right, well, we will park it there. False alarm, everybody, but I'm sure there'll be more news. Hey, maybe WWE would love to break news if Mercedes does appear tonight during her appearance, so everyone turns away from that and is following the news. Wouldn't put it past Vince McMahon to do something like that. So we will see. But thank you as always for everyone. And Kermit is oh, you guys are cracking me up. Okay. I will enjoy Dynamite, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.